whammy, 20% pay cut, boom. Union workers, we can't have that union nonsense. You're not even working here anymore. I don't even want you around. Don't even look at me. Don't even look at me, Bill. So, of course, the workers go on strike. And, of course, there is a situation. So the Pinkertons are brought in, and the Pinkertons, the police, break it up. There is violence, nonsense. So the Pinkertons are like a secret detective agency. You have to just deal with the phone ringing in the background. I'm in the middle of the video. This person will just have to wait. So the Pinkertons break up the fight, and 16 people die, 150 wounded. So they go on strike. The Pinkertons come in again, bringing in the police to solve the problems. Carnegie hires these police. Look, is there a hang up button? There it is. Well, they're going to be mad at me now. So the Pinkertons break it up. A lot of people die, but nothing really changes. And now it does make some of the union workers, again, if you're a part of the union camp and you're a part of the union, you're sort of stronger, but you're also at the same time saying, look, when is this ever going to end? Like every time we go on strike, we lose. They hire police to beat us up and kick us out. They bring in the government to break us up. We can't win. This isn't fair. I don't want to do this anymore. So in some ways, it does strengthen union participation, but for the most part, every time one of these strikes happens and they fail, union participation drops every single time. Like, man, I'm tired of this. I'm just going to go to work and I'm going to shut up and I'm going to get paid less. But that's just the way that it's going to be. The Pullman Strike, 1894. What do you think is going to happen, folks? You see the paycheck in the bottom of the screen. What do you think is going to happen here? Yeah, you guessed it. Paying them less, as always. I don't have the specific percentage, but I'm sure whatever that is, it pays them less. The Pullman Company, so we just talked about a steel company. The Pullman Company, they made railroad cars. They made train cars. That's what their job was, to make these cars and to make sure that they're called sleeping cars. Actually, I don't know if you've ever ridden the Amtrak where you can go sleep. It's like a hotel on wheels. Well, that's what they were in charge of. Hotels on wheels, these Pullman cars, and they cut the wages, so the union workers go on strike. But again, they amp it up. Not only are they locked out, so we're going to cut the wages, and you union workers, we're not going to lock you out. You're just fired. Get out of here. At the Carnegie steel mill, we locked you out and said you're not coming back in until you quit the union and you take the pay cut. Here, I don't even care. Like, even if you agree to a cut, you're gone. You're fired. They kick them out. So, of course, they go on strike and all this stuff's happening. This is the really interesting one with this Pullman strike. This is where it gets really fun. The owners, the bosses, they always got a plan. I talked about before. Even when you're on strike, they have money in the bank, so they can deal with you striking for a while. They've got all these kind of tricks and all these plans worked out. Well, here's the best one. So the Pullman cars, these are sleeping cars. They're hotels on the wheels. They're not really shipping anything other than this is where people sleep in. Well, the boss gets an idea, like, you know what? Because we're making these railroad cars, and our job is to make sure that they're moving around. He decides to load the railroad cars up with the U.S. mail. So now, when the workers strike and they refuse to work on the Pullman cars and they refuse to build the Pullman cars and make sure that the Pullman cars are going along the railroads, those strikers are now interfering with the federal government. They are now preventing the U.S. mail to move, which is now a federal crime. Before, you were just striking. You didn't want to work. That's no big deal. That's between you and your boss. Well, now you have committed a crime because you're refusing to ship the mail. You are interfering with the mail of innocent citizens. Those innocent citizens are not receiving their mail because of you, you worker. And so now the government has to get involved. They don't want to stop the strike, but of course the government gets involved. We've got violence, and they just throw them all in jail because they committed a crime, and business wins again. So we got the Great Railroad Strike. We got the Homestead Strike. We had the Haymarket Riot and the Pullman Strike. Those are your 4 specific examples. And yes, and in every case, the workers lose. Here's a political cartoon to kind of give you an idea of what life was like as a worker in the turn of the century around 1900, 1880, 1890, 1900, give you an idea. So just analyzing this cartoon on your own, you can see, all right, this guy is wearing a suit. This guy is wearing regular clothes. He has a shovel. He's got the bottle of wine. He's got more food. He's got less food. He's got the tablecloth, no tablecloth. He gets the flour. So this is a perfect example of the way life was, where the wealthy business owners were getting all of the benefits of capitalism, all of the benefits of laissez-faire economics were clearly, during this point, highly favoring the owners, and the workers were striking. Now, he's got food. He's not starving, but this is what they wanted. Notice the flour is in the middle of the table. Notice the tablecloth stretches everywhere. And both have enough food. And both have a beautiful bottle of wine. And both have a shovel, because there isn't a suit here. We are the same. We both work. We are on an equal, even playing field. No one is above anyone. That's a political cartoon. And without reading a word, this could be in Chinese, this could be in Italian, and it probably is. I don't know. Maybe this was a Spanish cartoon. I can't tell you, but it doesn't matter. Anyone, whether you're from any nation or whether you are illiterate, a child or a worker can understand this based on the pictures. That is the power of a political cartoon. There is a clear message being sent through this political cartoon. Now, after all that, after losing every major labor strike, did the workers give up? And the answer is, you're like, yeah, of course they gave up. They lost them all. Wrong. Now, you can see after the Haymarket Riot, membership dropped. That's when the guy threw the bomb. After the Pullman Strike, that's when they put the mail in the train cars. Membership declined. So it always went down. But then guess what? They did not give up. And look at that. Sky high growth. Because the people's problems didn't go away. Sure, they kept losing. But guess what? They're still working 24 hours. The working conditions are still unsafe. They still have no rights. Their problems haven't gone away. You can't just quit if you still have problems. The 3 goals that we mentioned from the labor unions: 8-hour workday, arbitration, and government regulation. Well, guess what? There's an 8-hour workday today. 8-hour workday. And if you work more than 8 hours, you get overtime. They kept fighting. The labor unions kept fighting. They kept fighting with the bosses, and they kept lobbying the government. Remember, we talked about lobbying a couple lessons ago. It's when you're persuading the government to pass laws to help you out. The labor unions got their representatives to lobby Congress to make laws that would help the workers. And one of those laws was 8-hour workday. Number 2, arbitration. They got this to happen. This doesn't always happen, but this is definitely something that happens occasionally, where they bring in an independent party that listens to the workers and listens to the owners, looks at all the facts, and makes a decision. And some people might say, oh, I don't know about that. Why don't they side with the bosses? Well, that's better than what you got before, because what you had before was the boss sided with the boss. At least now you got a chance. And then last, government regulation. Of course, we've got government regulation. It's everywhere. There are specific requirements on how long you can work, on safety conditions. There's all kinds of laws about work. I mean, look at the back of this juice bottle that I have. It has all kinds of words written on it, safety regulations that weren't there before. It's not just, here's a juice, just juice in a bottle. No, they give you juice in a bottle, and they've got all this stuff written on it because it's safety regulations created by the government to make sure that businesses aren't poisoning people. So there it is. Be able to evaluate. Can you evaluate the effectiveness of labor protests? You might say, none of the labor protests work. All right. If you don't believe that labor protests work, tell me specifically how they didn't work. What did they do wrong? Was it their fault, or was it that the owners just had more power? Well, what specific power did the owners have? Was it the protesters' fault, or was it the things that they couldn't control? Was it that there were scabs? Was it that they had bills to pay? Those are the things that you can use. That's the evidence Those are the examples that you use to make decisions. You don't just make a decision. You may always lean in a direction. Something might just seem right to you, but you need to have something that supports why you believe in what you believe. And then last, give examples of the labor fighting against owners. Can you remember them in chronological order? Number 1, 1877, the Great Railroad Strike. Number 2, although it wasn't necessarily a protest or a strike, but it definitely was a gathering of labor and a gathering of union workers. They weren't really necessarily protesting one business or one job. It was the Haymarket Square Riot of 1886. Number 3, Carnegie, his steel mill, hires the Pinkertons to come in and bust some heads. That was the Homestead Strike. And then the last one that we talked about, 1894. This is where they pulled that really tricky move. Oh, that boss. Like I said before, it is a chess match. It is a chess match. I know, like, no, we're talking about people's lives here. These are people's lives. This isn't a game. Well, you thought this was a game. Well, it is a game, and it's a strategic game. And the boss put the mail in the railroad cars, in the what we call the Pullman cars, which were the Pullman sleeping cars. Wait a second, those are for sleeping people, not for mail. Well, not today it is. The Pullman Strike of 1894. All right, thanks for joining me. Not that you have much of a choice if you're one of my students. Sorry.